Okay, good day, everyone. It is my pleasure this morning, or for me, but maybe evening, morning, afternoon, night for the rest of you. Good day to everybody. I'm going to provide a very quick presentation of the World Road Association on behalf of our Secretary General, Patrick Mallerchak, that unfortunately sent his excuses because he's attending the executive meeting for the association. So PIARC is a non-profit, non-political association that has more than 100 years of life. And the main goal of the association is provide a forum for exchange of knowledge, policy and practice on road and road transport, work with low, middle and high income countries, and include 128 member governments at this point. In addition, there's regions, university, companies, and individuals that can also be members of PIARC. PIARC is based on the work of volunteers and mobilizes more than 1,800 experts from more than 80 countries and more than 20 committees and task forces. And it's recognized for the quality and neutrality of our work. Operation is structured with 4-year plans, and we are now in the first year of the plan for this cycle. The knowledge exchange is done through many avenues. There's committees that organize different type of network building, showing reports that provide state of the practice on various topics, and those are the knowledge is disseminated widely through hundreds of reports, case studies, literature reviews, and those are in 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish, usually free of charge and available, a few of them in some other languages. In addition to that, PIARC organized seminars, workshop, conference, and webinars like the one we are participating today. Has 5 comprehensive manuals and software tools like the HDM4, the QRAM, and a few other software that are available for use. That also has big events with Congress and other events that are used to disseminate the work and create further discussions and knowledge exchange. The next 2 would be the Winter World Service and Road Resiliency Congress that will take place in Chambéry, France in March of 2026, And the call for papers for that Congress is open, so you can submit your presentations if you're interested. And then the World Congress will be in Vancouver, Canada in 2027. The work of the technical committees are organized in strategic themes, and there's 4 of them: road administration, road mobility, safety and sustainability, and resilient infrastructure. In our committee is part of the safety and sustainability strategic team, together with road safety, wind and surfing, environmental impact, and a task force on road infrastructure for road transportation decarbonization. So that's all I have. And again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Gerardo. Thank you for your presentation. And for the time, John will share his screen. John Patterson is the leader of this subgroup, and I'm co-leading, as Pascal Trottier from France, this subgroup. So John will introduce you to this webinar, which will be explained to you. And John, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Pascal. Can you see the screen? Okay,
yes.
My screen. Yep. Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you to PIARC for the opportunity to present this webinar today. And thank you for all of you for joining us for this session. I hope you find it very useful. My name is John Patterson. I am from the UK representative, technical director with a consultancy at Casrialis, but also, as Pascal mentioned, working group lead for this task. Renewal and rejuvenation of aging infrastructure was the topic, and this was a new topic for the last cycle of PIARC. So I think the first issue or the first challenge we had was to define what did we mean by aging infrastructure. So you can see here the definition. We're talking about road-related assets that are approaching the end of their expected service life or have prematurely deteriorated in condition and no longer providing the required level of service. So I know that the key thing here was not just in terms of how old they were in terms of when they were installed or constructed, but really in terms of actually has that service life been impaired and reduced? Has the way the network has been used changed and thus had impacts on the how those assets work, how the network works? Has the environment changed since they were constructed? And also has underinvestment in maintenance accelerated deterioration and increased the backlog of work that is needed? So in terms of developing that common understanding, that drove some of the topics we researched, and some of the case studies we talk about that some of our colleagues will currently talk about today will cover that. So how do we do our study? The first part was in terms developing a literature review. So we had a number of sources that we were able to draw upon. We had a good wide working group, so not just those of us on the call today, but many others in the last cycle and also the new cycle, so many thanks to those. But that provided us with some geographical balance in terms of the road administrations from different parts of the world, from the Americas, Europe, Africa, Asia, and in terms of income status of those countries as well, in terms of high, medium and lower middle income countries. So we also drew upon existing literature and also PIARC research, because there's a vast amount of PIARC research that is already out there. So in terms of being able to draw upon that was helpful. As you can see, we brought in a number of sources from the literature review, just a few of those that are mentioned in there, and of course in the full report you can see those in more detail. We also an important part of the project was around undertaking an international survey. So this was put out via PIARC and via networks. We had a very strong response. I think PIARC were very pleased. We had over 130 responses in total. As you can see there, again, a balance in terms of the income of those economies that they were representing, and also it was a mix, majority road administrations, but also in terms of other organisations involved in asset management and delivering road networks. So all of this has been fed into a technical report. So the technical report is freely available on the PIARC website, and we will, I think the link we can make is highlighted later in this, and also we can make it available to everyone, hopefully via the chat perhaps. We used 5 chapters around changes and challenges, monitoring and assessment of ageing infrastructure, risk management, how prioritization programs and funding in terms of actually delivering change, and also technical skills and staff required for this particular sort of challenge. There's a number of case studies that we were able to draw upon that you can see listed there, and also a series of recommendations. So just looking at each of those topics, just to provide a bit of a high-level summary of the key findings. For the changes and challenges, this was really around, well, actually, what is contributing to this aging, to challenges of aging infrastructure. So certainly in terms of the growth of road networks, there's a lot more assets to be managed over the course of the networks compared to many years ago. Equally, increases in volumes and weight of traffic has had an impact in terms of the load being carried. Technical and safety standards have changed over time, certainly in terms of new assets being constructed or installed may well be designed to very different standards of much older ones. Probably some familiar challenges around funding, other pressures in terms of where investment can go from governments and from regional authorities, the impact of climate change on networks, and then ultimately around the work the research looked into how road networks could be managed against the required performance levels, and also around investigated sort of levels of aging infrastructure across different road administrations. So plenty of information there to provide some of that context. And I think one of the key messages there is very applicable to every road administration in every country. So next we looked at monitoring and assessment. I guess this is always a core part of good asset management in terms of really understanding the condition of those assets, in condition and performance of the infrastructure, and obviously a key priority around the safety of that service to users of the networks. So we looked at established methods, traditional techniques, but also some emerging and innovative technologies around that, as well as collecting that data, well, actually in terms of using asset information systems to support decision making, building information management as another tool, and really understanding not just the condition, but with those service lives and expected service lives of assets to be able to make those ultimate decisions. A lot of this is also probably, I know, Gerardo, there's a separate working group this cycle that's going to be looking at issues of data. So again, some of that is probably will feed into that. Risk management, the issue here was around, well, okay, we can understand that we have aging infrastructure, we can understand the issues and the problems that is causing, but we almost certainly will not have sufficient funding and capacity to address all of that in one go. So how do we manage those risks of aging infrastructure until we can actually fund suitable renewal or rejuvenation of that infrastructure? Some of the methods looked at was around perhaps using risk-based inspections to focus on assets of greater risk and dedicate resources there. There's also examples of using technology such as remote sensors to understand the performance of assets and understand where that can safely be used. Measures such as signage and speed limits and restrictions to reduce the potential loading on those assets, and ultimately also monitoring road accidents and safety in terms of keeping the users of the network safe. All that is good, but as I just mentioned, the question of funding and investment is always a challenge, and certainly around how can we, the work looked at how can we evaluate the risks associated with aging infrastructure and actually prioritise a strategy to address that. Some of the factors looked at, you can see here around in terms of network hierarchies, how are they being used, where those issues of safety and condition might be, and some of the tools in terms of being able to use specialized asset management software were looked at, plus not just looking at this from an engineering perspective, but also an important angle of what is the user and the customers and communities around the network, what are their requirements on this. Obviously, the key output of that is to support making the case, and that is one of the themes that we are looking at in more detail in this cycle. Technical skills and skilled staff was something of particular interest, very much a view that current skills development and the like is focused on new assets, the design and construction of highway infrastructure and road infrastructure. So very much around, well, actually potentially a different set of skills required for the issues of addressing aging infrastructure. That is not just an issue of upskilling existing workers, but also how can we bring in new recruits and bring them up to speed in terms of what they need to be able to deliver. Some of that also includes emerging skills such as digitization and digital skills, and also about how we share some of that knowledge across different authorities and different user types. So just in conclusion of the technical report, as I've already hinted, the study really did confirm that despite some initial preconceptions, this is an issue for all road administrations around the world to some degree. Some of those different interpretations of aging infrastructure perhaps sometimes caused some confusion, but the definition really helped. There was a lack of specific research that is already out there regarding the topic. There is some out there. but certainly in terms of some of that evidence and good practice that has been brought together, it is available in the technical report. The link is in there, and like I say, we shall put it into the chat hopefully, and please do access that and review it in your own time. So one final point, that was we've been talking about the findings from the last PIARC cycle, but we are also continuing this theme of renewal and rejuvenation of aging infrastructure for the next cycle, 2024 through to 2027. The three key issues we are looking at there in perhaps some more detail around those specific issues around aging infrastructure and their solutions, making the case for addressing aging infrastructure, and also some of the practicalities around delivering renewal schemes to be as efficient and reduce impact to others as much as possible. I'll pause at that point, and Pascal, I think I can see there's some chat coming on, but I think we'll pick that up later. Pascal, if you want to take over.
John. Thank you. That's okay for you, John? Thank you so much. As John mentioned, it's a new subject on PIARC, and the idea right now is to show you all road agencies, ministries of transport are facing this particular subject of aging infrastructure. So now we will have a presentation of a special challenge, which is the traffic growth, which will be explained by Mitja from Slovenia. Mitja, the floor is yours.
Okay, good day, everyone. I am Mitja. I come from Slovenia. I work at the state-owned engineering company where I lead small asset management department. Today, I will present you a case study that we prepared for the changes and challenges chapter for the PIARC report. So first, where are we? We are situated in Europe. We are a small country between Adriatic Sea and the Alps. So we call it, we are on the sunny side of the Alps. So a bit of history that it will be easier for you to understand why this extreme traffic growth had happened. Till 1991, we were part of socialistic Yugoslavia. Their economic growth, if we speak in asset management terminology, was not one of the main KPIs. In 1991, we got independence. We also switched economic system to capitalism. In 2004, we joined EU. So today, based on the International Development Bank, we are a high-income country. About the motorways, we started to build them in 1970s. We built some in 1980s, but the majority of motorways were built in 1990s and in 2000s. We also have two European plan corridors. One is Corridor 5 and one is Corridor 10. So this is like the base of what had happened. So when we started to build motorways, they were more meant for internal traffic, not international one, and also for much lower GDP than we have now. So this is like a chart which I prepared around 2010 when I started to work. It still has the old Excel graphics. So what happened? These are traffic loads on a section of motorway that was built in 1999. In this time, the motorway, when it was planned, the estimated traffic was at these levels. And when motorway opened, actually for the first 4 years, the traffic was under the estimated volumes. But around the time when we joined EU, GDP growth happened, and also the motorway that was built for domestic purposes became European corridor. So in few years, the traffic number, the ECLs quadrupled. So, and also at this time, the majority of new construction had happened. So we were like standing here, didn't have money for the renewals because we will still had to repay the loans for the new constructions. The condition was changing rapidly of the payments. And we also didn't know how long will this increased growth continue. So yeah, this was the change in conditions. Let's say that the motorways that were built for this condition changed to this condition. So in general, it's the same motorway, but in reality, it is not. So we were like, we needed a solution for these problems. Also, the increase of traffic brought other problems. One of them was that before, with little traffic, when we were renewing motorways, we were managed to close one half of it and redirect the traffic to another side. But with increased traffic, we needed 2 lanes in each direction. And the problem with the motorways as they were built was that the emergency lane was too narrow. It was impossible to put 4 lanes on one side. So that means we had to make them wider. But that means also more complex projects, more money. Also, another thing happened, a European harmonized standard for safety barriers came. And as traffic safety is also a business, people for traffic safety said all the old barriers are obsolete. Each time you are doing something, you have to change the barriers. That also caused another strain on us. So if you look what PMS is showing, here we were building motorways. Here we already were facing problems, and in 6 years, backlog of payments quadrupled, doubled. So we were like, in this time around, we were seeking for new approach. And what we had done, we increased funding for inlays. So on driving lane, and when IRI got bad, we did inlay without any design. We milled 13 centimeters and changed the asphalt. It was rather fast to implement. It didn't take a lot of organizational capacity. And it was limited only to the driving lane because overtaking lane and emergency lane were not deteriorating that fast. Secondly, on sections where we had moderate traffic growth or where the pavement was strong enough, we did overlay. So we overlaid the pavement with 4 centimeters. We did some patching of existing pavement, and we only replaced safety barriers at critical conditions like bridges, overpasses, and similar. And on the sections with the highest traffic growth and where the pavement was also the most distressed, we are widening motorways, and we also have to replace all the safety barriers. So if you look back, with this approach, we managed to stabilize condition short term and mid term. On long term, not yet, because now we are doing too much treatments with 10 years structural design life. But okay, honestly, when this had happened, we will also repay the majority of loans we took for the new construction. So we postponed the problem a bit. So that was the solution. And now if you look for the future challenges, the extreme traffic growth continues. So now around Ljubljana, we are already facing that the capacity of 2-lane motorways are not enough, and we would need additional lane. And if we make a forecast, more or less in 15 years, this will happen on the, let's say, on the majority of the main network. So again, here, if we will use the approach similar to new construction, that we have to renew everything, we won't manage. So here we also we have a need to find a new approach. Okay. So thank you for your attention. This was like our contribution or understanding to the topic of aging infrastructure.
Thank you, Mitya. Thanks you a lot. It permits me to remember, don't hesitate for the audience to ask your question if you have to anybody. You put on the chat, and at the end, I will ask you to the different people. To face the different challenges is really important. And after to treat it, it will be important to build a methodology. Building a methodology is part with it could be from a different possibility. And I will give you now an example by Johannes from Germany. Will explain you how Bavarian agency made a manual to treat these different challenges on the aging infrastructure. Thank you, Johannes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Pascal. Hello from Germany. Just let me start my presentation. Okay. Just a moment. Do you see the presentation mode? No? Now you see the presentation mode?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Well, greetings from Germany, exactly from Bavaria, from Munich, not from the Oktoberfest, but from the Regierung von Oberbayern. My name is Johannes Diermeier. I'm a civil engineer and I work for the Bavarian Road Administration at the district of Oberbayern, Regierung von Oberbayern, district of Upper Bavaria. And I would like you to present a case study that is also part of the TC's report. And this case study is, you can find it in the chapter Technical Skills and Skill Stuff. But in the report, the name of the case study is different. It's a guidance for renewal of roads with reduced standard. And as Pascal already told you, my case study is from the Bavarian Road Administration, and my case study is about a manual, a planning ad on the modernization of rural roads. But attention, the manual and my presentation don't cover the topics engineering structures like bridges. I think Yvonne will tell us more about the German nationwide approach to bridge modernization in the following presentation. But before I start presenting the manual, I would like to briefly introduce my administration and our area of responsibility and the motivation for this manual. First of all, what is Bavaria? Bavaria is a federal state in the south of Germany, near to Austria and Czech Republic. Bavaria is the largest German federal state. It has a strong economy. Companies like BMW, Audi, Adidas, Siemens, and so on have their headquarters there. And Bavaria is also touristic hotspots. I've already mentioned Oktoberfest, which is taking part at the moment 2 kilometers away from here. But we also have famous medieval towns like Rothenburg or the castles of the Bavarian king Ludwig I. For the football fans, especially those from Birmingham, the most football club Bayern München, Bavaria Munich, also came from Bavaria, and it has even the name Bayern Bavaria in its club name. Yeah, the Bavarian Road Administration. We are responsible for the regional and supra-regional road network in Bavaria. That's about 23,000 kilometers of roads. And we are responsible for our own roads, but also for roads that we are entrusted to manage. For example, the 6,000 kilometers of federal highways. The owner is not the Free State of Bavaria, it's the Federal Republic of Germany. But according to the German Constitution, these roads are managed by the federal states. Then we have our own roads, the state roads with 50,500 kilometers, and we are also responsible for 3,000 of the 18,000 kilometers of county or district roads. And until 2021, we was also responsible for the federal motorways. But now this is be done by a company of the Federal Republic, by the Autobahn GmbH. We are responsible for the entire life cycle of a road, from the idea the planning, the construction, the operation, the management, and the renewal. We have 3,500 employees, and we are not only the owner of the infrastructure, but we also have the knowledge and the skills to plan, to design roads and bridges by ourselves. But of course, we also outsource these services to external engineering consultants. Our network is grown historically. Here, 2 photos from the 1950s, because especially after World War II in the area of motorization, it has grown considerably. Today, we have a very diverse road network. We have narrow and low traffic through roads in towns and villages, like you see on the bottom of this slide. But we also have modern motorway-like trunk roads with special assets such as large bridges or tunnels, telematics, equipments, and here a photo from a road in the Alps with avalanche protection systems even. The design and the condition of the road section are also diverse. We have roads that fully meet the actual requirements, like this road on the left side. These roads meet the current standard in all terms. But on the other hand, we have roads that may have met the requirements in the past, but no longer do so today. These are roads with deficits in alignment, in condition, and in safety, like the road you see on the right side. And unfortunately, 50% of our state road network doesn't meet the actual requirements. In order to obtain information about the condition of our network, the condition of the pavement, we have pavement condition survey and assessment since the early 1990s, generally every 4 years. And we do this according to a nationwide German standard. Among others, we record skid resistance, cracks, unevenness, or ruts. Here you see an example of the highly aggregated total value. Red is poor value, blue and green are good value. And as you see, we have both. Now, it might seem that it's only necessary to renew the pavement. However, in many cases, this is not adequate. Some of the roads also have other deficits in the alignment or the design, for example, and just renew the pavement, the deficits will remain. And in many cases, improving the pavement's condition leads to higher speed. We have in Germany a speed limit on the rural roads of 100 kilometers per hour. And therefore, deficits in road design can have serious effects to the point of serious accidents. And therefore, it's important to consider road safety when planning the renewal of a road. It is strongly recommended that safety deficits are analyzed and eliminated in the course of renewal measures. Here on the photo, an example, a road with a pavement in a, let's say, reasonable, acceptable condition. However, the road has some deficits that have impact on road safety. And on the map on the right side, it shows the accidents in 10 years. Every circle is an accident and the size shows the severity. And here the number and severity of the accidents could be reduced, were reduced by some small measures, by a couple of for example, speed limit, and including a strict controlling of the speed limit and improvement of the clear visibility of the curves. But to be honest, to eliminate the deficits in a sustainable way, the road has to be modernized. Yeah, what about money? The money, what about funding? This chart here shows how much money was invested in the state roads between 2013 and 2023. And the gray and green columns are interested for us because they show the money spent for the rejuvenation, the renewal, and the modernization of the existing roads. On the other hand, the blue column shows generally the expenses for new roads or for capacitive expansions of existing roads. And the chart shows two trends. First, the investment in the existing network has increased over the last 10 years from about 150 million in 2013 to over 360 million in last year. And the second, the focus is in the maintenance and the renewal and the modernization of the existing road network, and not in new roads. Yeah, and now what are the effects to this focus? Here, you can see the result of the last 3 pavement condition assessment campaigns. Left, the usage value, in the middle, the substance value, and in the right, you've also seen it, the total value. Every column shows the result of a campaign. Red is poor value, green is good value. And this slide shows the situation is improving. We are on the right way. That's the first side. But the other is we have still a very high backlog. Many of our state roads are still, in a very poor condition, and above all, they do not meet current needs and therefore show, in some cases, deficits in safety. But unfortunately, due to many restrictions like funding or limited manpower, it is not possible to modernize the entire road network to the latest standard. What can we do? Our strategy, the strategy of the Bavarian Road Administration, is improve more kilometers of road with the same budget, instead of just getting only a few roads into top status. But how can we achieve this? The basis for this are the guidelines. Yeah, the guidelines, you have heard right. The guidelines contain in Germany strict mandatory regulations and recommendations for standard solutions, but they also contain target regulations with a leeway. And when using standard solutions, you can assume that the planning is technically perfect and you're on the safe side. However, this standard can be very expensive. But the regulations also allow room for interpretations in the applications. And you see it here on the slide, they even allow deviations. However, these must be well justified. And now comes the crucial factor. Our experts, our engineers, our technicians, our planners, our construction supervisors. This is a photo from our advertising campaign for skilled employees. I built Bavaria, ich baue Bayern. We have to support our employees in making the most of the limited funds. Many of our engineers and technicians have experience in finding solutions that are both technically appropriate and cost effective. They are also familiar with the leeway offered by the regulations and know how to utilize it. But we also want to support those who have less experience to do so. And finally, we want to give backing to all our employees in this matter and help them to justify their decision. And for this purpose, we have compiled planning aids. These provide practical suggestions and advice for solutions that help to use the available funds in an economic, sustainable, and effective way. I know that this is not a revolution, but it's a part of a pragmatic approach to achieve our strategic goal. And here it comes, here the manual. The first version was already published in 2012 and it was updated in 2021. By the way, one of the reasons for the update was that as a result of a referendum, the Bavarian Road Act prescribes the reduction of land loss due to roads. The manual does not apply to all roads, but primarily to state roads, to our roads, with low traffic volume. As I already told you, the manual provides practical suggestions and advice for solutions that allow an economical, sustainable, and effective use of the available budget funds. This can be achieved, among other things, by utilizing the leeway given by the existing guidelines. But the manual also points out limits and identifies taboos or no-goes, particularly with regard to road safety. By the way, the manual is published on the internet. The QR code will take you here, take you there, yeah. And unfortunately, it's only in German, but I think Google Translator or DeepL will help you to understand it. Now let's have a look into the manual. I would like to mention just a few examples. An important first step in measures on existing roads is to understand the road, as every road is a prototype. The first step is the current status of the road must be analyzed. What is the traffic volume and the importance of the road? What framework conditions exist in the neighborhood, for example, with regard to nature protection or property ownership? What structural damages exist and what are the causes of these deficits? And what are the deficits in road safety and what are the causes of these deficits? Yeah, and then we have some chapters in this manual here for the alignment. The manual provides recommendations for the alignments. It suggests that the existing road should be retained as far as possible. This leads to lower costs, less impact on nature protection, less land consumption, and fewer affected private individuals. Here is an example. It shows a road modernization which largely follows the existing road. Only in the curve there's a deviation from the existing road. And here the vertical alignment for this example, you see the modernized road is always above the existing road, and this has a great advantage. The subgrade and parts of the pavement structures does not have been removed and maybe continue to be used. Pavement subgrade ground, here how pavement structure of an existing road can be reused. You see here yellow, the existing structure of the road, and the cross briefer, yeah. And you see it's integrated as part of the subbase and lower base course. Of course, if I've already told you, it must first be analyzed if the existing layer can meet the new requirements. As already mentioned, it's important to know the damages and their causes. And thanks to reuse, for example, no tarry material needs to be removed and disposed of. This reduces costs. Drainage and sewerage. Water is the road's greatest enemy. A proper drainage is absolutely essential for the road safety, but also for the structure. For example, the forced blanket course and the formation or subgrade must be properly drained and protected from water ingress. However, in some cases, it is not necessary to collect and to drain the road water into complex expensive pipes, the water authorities in Bavaria often favor infiltration of the water. Infiltration should therefore be favored over the collection whenever possible and permitted. And finally, road equipment. If there are dangerous obstacles at the roadside area, complex and expensive vehicle restraint systems are required to protect the road users. And therefore, the manual suggests to provide a roadside area without dangerous obstacles. Yeah, as mentioned, the central aim of the manual is to improve road safety. And for this reason, the manual contains 10 red lines that must be eliminated in the modernization of an existing roads. These are so-called core safety deficits. Core safety deficits are deficits that are known from experience to be associated with a high risk of serious accident. And here the 10 core safety deficits. And these core safety deficits are to be eliminated in the modernization project, preferably by structural measures. However, if necessary, by measures under traffic law, such as speed limit or traffic lights. Now let me just briefly present two of them. It's only 20 minutes that I'm talking. Two slides. Crossfall is crucial for safety, and insufficient crossfall on a curve may lead to vehicles being unable to stay in line and drifting off the carriageway. And therefore, even when modernizing the road according to a manual, a crossfall that conforms to the standard must be provided. And we consider this to be so important that we even provide crossfalls in according with the guidelines when simply renewing the pavement of the road. And here, good sight distance are crucial for a safe road. One of these sight distances is the departure sight distance. It's a very important sight distance. It's the sight that a driver on the minor road needs to enter or to cross the major road without conflicting with an approaching vehicle of the priority road. And the departure sight must always be guaranteed. The clear sight triangle must be kept free of obstacles like slopes, vegetation, signs, railings, safety barriers, or here on the photo you see it, other vehicles waiting in the junction. And if the clear sight triangle cannot be guaranteed, a speed limit or a traffic light system must be provided. Yeah, shoulders and verges, it's another core safe deficit, but time is over. That was a brief introduction to our manual modernization of existing rural roads. Once again, here is the QR code of the manual. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them into the chat or to contact me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Johannes. So for the people you saw that it's really important, thanks to guidelines, to build action plans. And after what was shown on this presentation, it's also to measure the action and to see the effect on the modernization of the network. Based on the methodology, segmentation is important. We have seen on this presentation segmentation by type of road network. On the next presentation, we will have a focus on the type of asset. And on that, I give the floor to Yvonne from Germany also, which will explain you the strategy for bridges modernization maintenance. Yvonne, you can share your screen and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Pascal. Hello, everybody. I'm coming to my presentation for bridge modernization. So bridges are mostly the sensitive parts of a network. So I'm the deputy head of the Division of Civil Engineering Structures in the Federal Ministry for Digital and Transport in Germany. And I'm also a member of PIARC. I'm part of the Technical Committee for the Bridges, and there I'm the chair of the requirements and evaluation methods for structural redundancy of road bridges. So today I will talk a little bit about our bridge stock, our new key parameter, how do we our bridge survey for the motorways and federal highways, and so what we are planning to do with our network, and yeah, I give you some points of our funding. So that's our age structure of our bridges. So we have about 40,000 bridges in the federal trunk roads. And normally for the big roads, we have for every direction a separated bridge. Therefore, we normally are talking about partial bridge structure. So normally most our slides are now based on 52,000 partial bridge structures. So, and you'll see on the right-hand side the distribution of the age structure. So most of our bridges were built in the 60s and 70s, especially in Western Germany. And after the union of Eastern and Western Germany in the beginning of 1990, we have many new bridges in the eastern part of Germany. And especially as we heard from our Slovenian colleague after the reunion, more or less, the traffic has grown extremely. And as we are now more or less in the middle of Europe, we have increasing traffic from east to west, from north to south. And except from the Corona gap at the end of the slide, the traffic still keeps on growing, and there's no limit foreseen for these days. So, and but as bridges are normally built for more or less 70 to 100 years, we now you see on the slide the limited of the rate didn't increase so much as the traffic has done. So we are now dealing, as I said, especially in Western Germany, with mostly bridges from the 60s and 70s. So therefore, the load capacities and the axle loads are not sufficient for the extreme traffic increase we have nowadays. And this do we see in the next slide. So in the 1950s, 60s, or more or less 70s, we have built roads and bridges like on the left-hand side. But yeah, this fits full our requirements as there were not so much traffic. And nowadays, we have a lot of traffic jam. And as you see on the slides, the breakdown lane nowadays is used as a traffic lane. But we already got our old infrastructure, our old bridges. And so the increasing traffic in our, normally we say the traffic has produced another bridge use. So our requirements does not fulfill what we do need. So, and our old bridges, as you see here, normally have low robustness, no reserves, low durability for this heavy increase of traffic, and we have to improve robustness and durability from a today's perspective. So, and for the different kind of bridges, just to show you, we have for sure from the old codes, there are deficits from a nowadays view. And so especially for the big bridges over the rivers, which are made of steel, there are no proof of equivalent stress or fatigue, something like this. Maybe you heard it from your bridge colleagues already. So especially for Germany, we made some investigation at our research institute, and so what we can say from a nowadays view, we already touch our safety limits with the old bridges for the heavy increased traffic. So we exceeding the load bearing capacity, and we are now in a really risky safety level of our bridges sometimes. And for sure, we are doing bridge inspection, and therefore we got a condition grade. And as you see, more or less, the condition grade is totally fine. But when you look on the right-hand side and you see the distribution of the condition grade, especially for the longer bridges, you see a concentration that the condition grade is especially for the big bridges not so sufficient as we would need. But the condition grade, as we have bridge inspection, is only inspection from outside. So it's more or less the bridge inspector comes, got his views and so on. And so at the end, he shows how many cracks, whatever, and we get a really good view from outside of the bridge. But as you have seen, we had so much traffic increase. From our point of view, we also needed an inside view for the structural conditions. So we invented some years ago the load bearing index, which shows the the level we need, the load level we need, and the load level we got. And so as you see, the level 1, which is really green, there everything is fine. So the load bearing capacity we need fits totally the load bearing capacity we have. And on the right-hand side, so the index 5 shows that we have many deficiencies in the load bearing capacity. So for us, we now have two grades, or one grade, one index, which shows us the view from outside and the inside view. And we already know the situation. So more than a decade before, more than 10 years ago, we made our first strategies for bridge modernization, and all bridges with a lower load level on the right-hand side in the box, they have to be modernized. And so what did we do 15 years ago? We made a list. We made a list of high priority single structures. So we got a plan, we got more than 2,500 priority bridges in the whole network. And as you can see, these are the bridges over the years which were modernized every year. But this was not, let me say, we only had a view to very single structures in our network. So we also knew that the development of the condition grades only accelerated good, but not that fast as we would like to have. But we made we made or put all our load bearing indexes, which also fits the list which I have shown you before, and we identified more than 8,000 partial bridge structures in the motorway, which has to be modernized. That's a lot. So, and we got about 3,000 partial bridge structures for the federal highways. So in total, about 12,000 bridges for the federal trunk roads. So what did we do for the motorways? We said we cannot manage every single structure one by one. This doesn't make any sense because the traffic has to flow. So we made a bridge modernization network. So we identified our main corridors, which link functions to harbors, to major urban areas. We reflect also the European core network for the roads. We incorporate also ports and so on. And for this network, we identified now about 4,000 bridges, which has to be done. So from these 4,000 bridges, about 1,300 bridges are already in progress, so they are in planning or in reconstruction, and we already have 2,600, about 2,600 bridges to be done in the next years. So that's a lot. As you may know, we had a switch in the administration issue. So now we have the Autobahn GmbH for the association only for the motorways. And this slide shows that the motorway company in Germany has to improve the modernization of bridges in the upcoming years. So the aim for them will be to rebuild more or less 400 bridges, partial bridge structures every year. And so that's the foreseen slide for this. So they are in a running up process to do this, very, very, let's say, hard work. And we also, our minister said to the motorway company that they have to plan better, build faster. We also try to use some bridges a little bit longer, and we try to be more efficient as we have new bridge construction issues. But we are also facing a really hard lack of engineers. That's more or less our really main problem, because bridge engineers like me, they are not existing on the German market as we would need. And so it's really a hard job in these days. For us, the funding is not so much the problem. So we will get the billions for the next years. So that's already in the investment plan of the Federal Ministry for the Motorways planned. And for the normal maintenance, we have now we are up to 2024. We have over 5 billion euros for the whole for the roads and for the bridges and for the tunnels and so on. And for the bridges, there are about 2 billion. 2 billion euros, which will be invested this year for the federal trunk roads. And as I already said, our most issue will be the lack of engineers we are facing. And let's see if our strategy will work. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thanks a lot for this particular presentation on bridges modernization. So on the different presentation you had before, it was focused on European countries and European agencies. And part of our job, as John mentioned before, was to conduct a survey, to have a better view of all people in the world were understanding aging infrastructure and all people were treating this particular subject. So now we will present you with Zara, the survey that we have conducted on the last cycle. And I remember you, all the audience, don't forget to put if you have any question on the chat. So right now we have noticed one of them, some of them, and don't hesitate to ask if you have any question. So right now we will present you with Zara, which I will let her present after when I will give her the floor, the survey that we have done on the last cycle. So as an introduction on the next slide, the main ideas was to understand, to have the view in terms of geographical and the type of the road network, the way they were treating the aging infrastructure. So the methodology we took, we based on surveys, questions on the different chapters that we put and that John explained you, with changes and challenges, monitoring and assessment, risk management, prioritization, program and funding, And finally, technical skills. And on this presentation, we will tell you some focus analysis that we have done, most of them quantitative, and for some of the others, qualitative analysis. So right now, I give the floor to Zara, which will introduce to you, and I will explain you for other subject after. Thank you. Zara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pascal. So my name is Zara Kadri. I'm a representative from the UK. I'm a young professional member of PIARC on the technical committee, asset management, and I was involved in the last cycle since 2020, and I'm currently involved in the new cycle looking at the next stage of aging infrastructure. So we conducted a survey and we spent some time, a good length of time building these questions to make sure we had a comprehensive list of questions covering all the different chapters Pascal mentioned in the previous slide. From the results, we received a diverse range of results from 66 different countries. So please note that some countries had multiple responses, but again, that's a benefit because they varied on the type of organization they belong to. So we received responses from Europe, Central Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and across these countries, there were a diverse range of climates that these countries experience. We also received a variety of responses from different income levels as well. So we had the majority of responses from high income countries, and we had a response rate of 40% from low middle income countries. This is a good response rate in terms of low middle income countries, as that's a key area that we want to find out more information from in terms of how they are managing their infrastructure and the challenges they face. So this is something that we want to focus much more on in the current cycle. So looking at the different organizations, most of the responses were from the private sector and around a third were from the public sector. There was for diversity in terms of the respondents from their role in public policy, looking at defining, applying, and reforming public policy. There was diversity in terms of the type of climates these current countries experience, as I mentioned earlier, and this was important for us to understand the context behind how the impact of the climate is going to have on the different aging infrastructure. So looking at the first part of change and challenges, there's a growing need for renewal and rejuvenation of aging infrastructure. This chapter is quite heavy. There's a lot of content and it covers a variety of challenges affecting aging road assets. There's been an increasing change in demands and the needs of the road network by road users from different types of road users. For example, there's been an increase in commuters, leisurely drivers, and the frequency of using the network has evolved. The volume and weight of heavy-duty vehicles has increased, especially in terms of trading and transporting goods across regional and highway roads. As an example, if we look at structures, bridges were designed for traffic around 40 years ago, and as such, the asset cannot, in some cases, withstand the changes in terms of how we use our roads. So firstly, from looking at a performance targets perspective, across the respondents, the highest focus was around safety and condition. Organizations prioritize safety of assets for road users. Changes in condition is something which is quantifiable, is more monitored, and is probably easily more maintained compared to things like mobility, sustainability, and resilience. Interestingly, the lowest target in terms of their network management was around resilience. And that's interesting because the focus is on aging infrastructure. So it would be good to further delve into that going forward. If you look at the proportions of aging infrastructure, the lowest proportions were on the main or national roads. So you can see here in the first column, looking at the orange and the dark blue segments. And the high proportions were on the regional roads, as you can see here in the far right column, looking at the light blue and the green segments. So, sorry, I've lost my chain. And again, this trend applies across all of the asset types. So we find that if you look at the regional road network, 60% of this network is aging, and which is much more than motorways and highways. From looking at both of these charts, proportions of asset types are similar, but you can see, for example, drainage assets are consistently more aging across both. So looking further into changes and challenges, we asked a question in the survey: has the total weight and/or axle loads permitted on public roads raised in the last 30 years? And we found 40 out of 68 respondents answered yes. From looking at the changes in the traffic volume, respondents expected the use of almost all modes of transport to consistently increase, apart from the use of motorcyclists, where they were forecasted to drop in the next 5 years. And you can see that there's a slight drop in motorcycles. We asked respondents to rank the challenges that they face by road assets, and the results showed traffic volume and overweight vehicles were classed as the most important challenge. And you can see that by looking at the blue segments on the far left of this chart, we can see traffic volume has the largest blue segment there and overweight vehicles. The least important changes were on political influence, skills, and climate change. And you can see that by looking at the olive green segment on the far right of the chart, where you can see the largest is political, skills, and climate change. So looking at another chapter, which was risk management, there was an overall perspective from high-income countries that more measures were required to manage risk on infrastructure, which has not been updated to reflect and this reflects the changes of how we use the road network. Speed limits were popular across high-income and low-middle-income countries, as speed limits help to minimize risks related to vehicles. Low-middle-income countries, as you can see in the bottom right chart here, mostly didn't have funding mechanisms in place for aging infrastructure. And I will pass back to Pascal.
Thank you, Zara. Thanks a lot. Just the time to tell you that if you're interested, as John mentioned, our full report is still available on the PIARC website. If you're interested about this particular survey and on the case study which has been presented, you can find the full report on PIARC website. Regarding prioritization program and funding, on the key points we can tell you. Part of the criteria that you can find here, the most important criteria is still the asset condition, which will be the hierarchy of the prioritization of the maintenance. Something which is important is the safety, which is also important, but we have some new subjects which increase as the environmental impact and the social impact, which is something that maybe will increasing in the next years, but maybe not in all the region in the world. After, we can see that the criteria seem to be the same within the low and middle income countries and the high income countries. You can see here on the chart below. Thanks, Zara. Regarding program, we can see that the majority of the people, the answer that we had, they have a strategy for aging infrastructure in terms of finance, but some of them not. And the effect on this is after to organize the financial methodology, they ask to the government funding for this particular maintenance of aging infrastructure. And the fact that maybe a clue on this is if you plan a strategy on this, it will be important after to build and to ask for international funding or private funding or others. But the fact that it's more an emergency, it is directly linked to government funding. So program, we can see that there is a real need on program and planification, as we had a view on a German example. Another chapter was monitoring and assessment. Something we can see as a result is that for main of the assets, it's still a human inspection, which is using to see the condition of the different assets. But on particular, as the payment, we can see that automated inspection is increasing, is becoming as a common use. And also with sensors, with remote sensoring, which can collect all the data on live. But that we have seen regarding our specific subject, aging infrastructure, only 30% of the people who have answered changing their frequency within the type of infrastructure and within the age, which is something that could maybe be important, because after, when your aging infrastructure will have a need of maintenance, it will be important to reduce the frequency to monitor it. A next key point that we had on monitoring and assessment, we wanted to have a view if people, road agencies, countries, Ministry of Transport had a view on their residual life by type of assets. And we have seen that quite well. More than 60% of the people have an idea of their residual life by assets. So that's something really important. You can see here on the charts what are the residual life by type of assets. And on the next slide, we can see that in terms of efficiency of residual life, we can see that there is a difference between low and middle income countries and the high income countries. And the only aim that we can see is that we have a lower residual life on street lighting, which I don't know, but that's what we have in terms of quantitative answers. So this was regarding monitoring and assessment. And again, you can see more on our report. Regarding the next chapter, technical skills and qualified people, something we have seen is that the people need training. People need to be updated on the different subjects, new technical maintenance solution, new technical way of monitoring their assets. And we can see here the different coordination within the type of way that people train their skills in their team. Here we are in a webinar, but thanks to PIARC, there is a lot of conferences and technical meetings. And after, the people are doing a lot in education institutions, sorry. After, regarding the topics which are really important for people, we can see that the most important topic is the maintenance techniques. We can see that there is a lot of evolution on this particular field in terms of renewal, for example, recycling. And this is important for the people that they have the information. And we can see here that there is a lack of information, maybe in some continents, but I think this is something that we have to get for all of us. And after, a key important thing is that all the people need to be trained on this particular subject, aging infrastructure, because we have seen that more than 76 people are available to have some more information on this particular subject. So this is regarding the survey. So again, you can find more on the report. And now we'll give the floor to John, our leader, for the conclusion of this webinar before to go to the QA session. John, the floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you, Zara. Thank you all.
Thank you, Pascal. So are you looking for, so you have the conclusions of the webinar, then any questions? Yep, correct, Pascal?
No, it's my fault, John. Yeah, sorry.
No.
I wanted you to speak a little bit.
Okay,
no, sorry. So now we will go to the Q&A session. And because it's you here, I will. There is a question for you, John, as introduction, which has been asked by Mr. Russell. Is that was the influence of change in land use considered?
So thank you for that. Good question. The answer is specifically, not specifically. However, the impacts of land use change were some of the key factors we'd picked up, in terms of the different type of traffic usage, the traffic type, some of the environment. And I think a good example was in Johanna's presentation for the manual. understanding not just the condition but the context and the framework for the roads there. I think in terms of how the area was being used. So Stuart, I hope that answers your question. Like I say, if you want to look in the full technical report online, we've put the link into the chat. And I was also going to just mention, whilst the report is currently in English, we are also currently producing French and Spanish translations. So hopefully that will make it easier for some of our global audience to access the report.
Thanks, John. Another question for you. This is a really specific one. You have some screenshot, and one of them was a picture on the moisture of the pavement, and it is a question for Mr. Desfonde from India, which wanted to understand what was the software used for this typical moisture pavement.
So the exact software used is not, I don't know the name specifically. However, it is it was the image came from one of the case studies in the technical report from Finland. So it was called the PEHKO project, PEHKO. I won't try. I'm sure our colleague Vesa would have been able to pronounce that much better. But a project they undertook in Finland. So there is some information in the technical report as part of one of the case studies. And I'm also aware that there is, I think, a lot more detail available online. So if you find the details in the technical report, find the title of that, you are able to look online, and hopefully that will give you some more information on the particular software they used.
Thank you so much, John. We will respect the chronology of the presenter. So now I will go to a question from Mr. Garch from DTU India to Mitya. And the question is, did you find a correlation in pavement deterioration and high traffic density? Mitya?
Yes. Yes, the roads who were under-designed are failing faster. Maybe what we found, maybe that like one overperformer is a road with stiff cement treated base with a thin asphalt overlay or too thin asphalt overlay. This one lasts a bit longer than we expected, but usually no, it corresponds.
Thank you, Mitya. And I hope it will be what was the question was, but I think it's yes. I think we all agree on that. And now we have a question, una pregunta de Bolivia. I think it is more for Johannes, but maybe in Renario Roger Cortes, you can ask what is your question because you up your hand. But if you want to ask, don't hesitate because I don't know what was your question.
Hello, my dear friends. My question is presentation. I need you. I need presentation the engineer Yvonne Gureven. Please.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sí, vamos a compartir las presentaciones sin problema.
Perfecto.
Okay, thank you, Ingeniero Cortes. Now I will go to another question to him from Mrs. I think van der Lippe. Is there enough capacity available at the construction companies to do all this work?
It's for me, right?
Yes.
Yes,
you,
okay.
You want me to repeat?
The construction industry says yes, for sure. But as we know from the procurement procedures, there are not, because there are not so much income from the industries for the procurement procedures. So also we have a lack of engineers also in the construction sector and also in the engineering sector. Yes, in total, we are facing a real lack of engineers in the administration, in the construction sector, and also in the engineering offices. So, I think this will be the most challenge in the next time. we are trying to get more younger people involved, but it's not a process. Or it's a process. Yeah. So I think you have a lot of responsibility. The payment in other sectors is better with less responsibility. So, well, let's see what we will bring out. Yeah.
Thank you, Yvonne. Another question to you, Yvonne, from Mr. Defande from India. How are the assessment of the bridges condition and load carrying capacity? And linked to that, what type of tests are being conducted to assess the condition of the bridges?
Yes. So as we are Germany, we have standards for everything. And so for, as I said, for the condition index, we have a standard which is called DIN 1076. So after this standard, the bridge inspection is done, and everything which is inspected has to be assessed and gone into a big database. So the base of everything for our bridges, we have a big database for all our bridges in the Federal Trunk Road, and we knew every single part of our bridges. That's essential. And so from the bridge inspection, the results are given into the database, and the condition grade is, as I said, already implemented in the regulations and in the standards. So this I can provide those informations if necessary. And the load-bearing index is, therefore, you need the traffic load on your different roads. And you also have to look into your database. And so the condition, so the load-bearing index is automatically calculated by the knowledge of the database from the bridges, and the input of the load capacity, which are on the different kind of roads. And so the load-bearing index is calculated automatically. If you need more information, because this is very specific bridge engineering topic, it's better to write me an email so that I can provide this special kind of information.
And a new question, and maybe the last that we have from now, from Miss Norje from Melbourne, Australia. Part of monitoring, do you have in real time using the strain gauges to monitor in real time your bridges?
Some bridges, yes, for example, where we know which are very sensitive because they have cracked, something like this. Yeah, they are monitored, and there are, as alarm indexes. So if there would happen anything, we would get an alarm, but we don't use it, as I said, for all the bridges, only for the sensitive ones where we know there we have to look closer, because otherwise you get too much data for nothing. So from our point of view, it's better to show on the really sensitive parts, and there we got monitoring issues for sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. On my side, that's okay. I don't know, Go, if you had on your direct window a particular question, we can have maybe a last question, and if you don't have anything more, I will give the floor to John for the conclusion.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have any more questions from my side. Yeah.
So thanks a lot to everyone for this particularly interesting question. I think it was really interesting. Thank you. And now, John, the floor is yours for the conclusion.
Thank you, Pascal. And don't worry, I don't have another huge set of slides to conclude. Thank you for everyone's patience. It's great to see so many of you still with us. Can you see that screen though, Pascal? Go. Yep. So yeah, so just to summarise, well, before we do, I suppose just reviewing the presentations that we had. We'll go back. I know for the different examples that we had, I know in Mitya's case study that we heard, it was I thought it was really interesting around that the planning that went into place in terms of when being able to defer some of the issues until funding had increased. Funding would increase following the completion of the payment of the loans. So an interesting sort of, should we say, balancing of priorities there. For Johannes, I think it was a really important takeaway of when we are looking at asset management, not just simply looking at the condition, but looking, in complete holistically at how that road is going to perform, and certainly bringing in those safety aspects as well. We know that there is another road safety technical committee. However, it's something we all need to consider as part of our work. For Yvonne, I would say thank you ever so much for taking the time to join the group. It was an excellent example of the value of collaborating across the technical committees, and I think it's something that we really want to be doing going forward. And for Zoe and Pascal, for the surveys, there was a vast amount of insight and data there. So I know there's a lot of hard work that went into the analysis of that, and also a big thank you to everyone in the sector who contributed to that. So if anyone on the call today or this meeting contributed to the survey, thank you very much. Just to recap some of the key points. So I've already mentioned that the technical report is available freely online. For those of you, it does require a login on the PIARC website. So if you do not have a login, you just need to register your name and address and what have you. You can then freely access the report. As I've mentioned, French and Spanish versions should be released on the website very soon. I think if anyone is interested, we can notify you as soon as possible, as soon as that is published. So please do let us know. For the 3 new subjects that we mentioned for the next cycle for aging infrastructure and potential solutions, making the case and delivery of schemes, those will be available over the course of 2025, 2026 and 2027. So you will not have to wait. They will be released sequentially. So we will not have to wait until the end of the cycle to find the learning from that. So please do continue to monitor the PIARC website, and we can notify you through the PIARC communications. Also for that work, we are really, as you picked up today, the case studies that we collect are really, really valuable, not just for the piece of work, but for sharing that knowledge. So we're always looking for potential case studies on those 3 topics we are looking at for this cycle. If you do have any potential ideas, you do not have to commit at this stage, but please do let us know. If you would like to contact myself, John Patterson @atkinsrealis.com, or Johannes via his email address there, we can put those into the perhaps into the chat to make it easier to contact us. We would really look forward to hearing from anyone, and in particular, we would especially welcome potential case studies from lower and middle income countries, because what we really, as Gerardo said at the very beginning, we don't want to make this study just something reflecting of other countries. We want to be able to make this any findings from this cycle equally applicable to all our members.